यशोदनन्दना व्रजजनरञ्जना यशोदनन्दना व्रजजनरञ्जना यामुनतीरावनचारी यामुनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दना व्रजजनरञ्जना यामुनतीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजाकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत शिष्यमाद His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय ISKCON BBT संस्थापकाचार्य His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada की जय Srimad Bhagavatam की जय All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya Naram chaiva narottamam Devim sarasvatim vyasam Tato jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu Nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke Bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, in the matter of the glories of devotional service, text 22. Mayy ananyena bhāvena bhaktim kurvanti ye dṛḍhām mat-kṛte tyakta-karmāṇas tyakta-svajana-bāndhavāḥ mayy ananyena bhāvena bhaktim kurvanti ye dṛḍhām mat-kṛte tyakta-karmāṇas tyakta-svajana-bāndhavāḥ mayy ananyena bhāvena bhaktim kurvanti ye dṛḍhām mat-kṛte tyakta-karmāṇas tyakta-svajana-bāndhavāḥ mayy ananyena bhāvena bhaktim kurvanti ye dṛḍhām mat-kṛte tyakta-karmāṇas tyakta-svajana-bāndhavāḥ mayy ananyena bhāvena bhaktim kurvanti ye dṛḍhām mat-kṛte tyakta-karmāṇas tyakta-svajana-bāndhavāḥ mayy ananyena bhāvena bhaktim kurvanti ye dṛḍhām mat-kṛte tyakta-karmāṇas tyakta-svajana-bāndhavāḥ mayy ananyena bhāvena kurvanti ye dṛḍhām mat-kṛte tyakta-karmāṇas Ladies, mayy ananyena bhāvena bhaktim kurvanti ye dṛḍhām mat-kṛte tyakta-karmāṇas tyakta-svajana-bāndhavāḥ mayy ananyena bhāvena bhaktim kurvanti ye dṛḍhām Advanas Mayy, unto me, ananyena bhāvena, with undeviated mind, bhaktim, devotional service, kurvanti, perform, ye, those who, dṛḍhām, staunch, mat-kṛte, for my sake, tyakta, renounced, karmāṇaḥ, activities, tyakta, renounced, sva-jana, family relationships, bāndhavāḥ, friendly acquaintances. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation: such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world. Purport: a person in the renounced order of life, a sannyasi, is also called a sadhu because he renounces everything, his home, his comfort, his friends, his relatives, and his duties to friends and to family. He renounces everything for the sake of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A sannyasi is generally in the renounced order of life, but his renunciation will be successful only when his energy is employed in the service of the Lord with great austerity. It is said here, therefore, bhaktiṁ kurvanti ye dṛḍhām. A person who seriously engages in the service of the Lord and is in the renounced order of life is a sādhu. A sādhu is one who has given up all responsibility to society, family, and worldly humanitarianism simply for the service of the Lord. As soon as he takes his birth in the world, a person has so many responsibilities and obligations to the public, to the demigods, to the great sages, to the general living beings, to his parents, to the family forefathers, and to many others. When he gives up all such obligations for the sake of the service of the Supreme Lord, he is not punished for such renunciation of obligation. But if for sense gratification a person renounces all such obligations, he is punished by the law of nature. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to Canto 3, Chapter 25, in the matter of the glories of devotional service. Text 22. Om ajnanatimirandasya jnananjana shlakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya manobishtam stapitam yena bhutale swayam rupa kadamahyam dadati svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Namahum Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swamaniti Namine Namacharya Padayana Taikrapa Pradayine Gaura Katha Dhamadaya Nagragramatharine Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadana Dase Iti Namine Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpattarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham bande Shri Gurudinatarinam yatkripatamaham bande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Katanchana Smrite Yasmin Dushkaram Sukaram Bhavet Vismrite Viparitam Syad Shri Chaitanyam Namamitam. So this is a very interesting chapter from the third canto. There are several important verses which we quote frequently, which appear in this chapter. Leading up to this verse, a sadhu has been described. However, in this verse, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada refers to a sadhu is one who has given up all responsibility to society, family and worldly humanitarianism simply for the service of the Lord. So then one may wonder, so whatever we read so far in this chapter, when the word sadhu was used, does not apply to the general practicing devotee. It applies to this class of devotee, the sannyasi alone. However, this statement by Srila Prabhupada is just for emphasis, because elsewhere, in several places, Srila Prabhupada explains that sannyas is a state of being. It's a state of being where everything for Krishna, nothing for oneself. That is the state of being of a sannyasi. So that consciousness, everything for Krishna, nothing for oneself, is the very basis of pure devotional service. So in the path of pure devotional service, everything is considered as an ashrama. Srila Prabhupada explains grihastha ashrama, and multiple places Srila Prabhupada says that the grihastha ashrama is as good as the sannyas ashrama. Now if that is as good, then why do you need to take sannyas? Why do grihasthas ever need to take sannyas? I'll come to that a little later. But the point being that whether one is a brahmachari, whether one is a grihastha, whether one is a vanaprastha, or whether one is a sannyasi, the common feature in devotional service is everything for Krishna, nothing for oneself. This is the sannyas state of being. Now, let me just give you a little perspective into how Srila Prabhupada explains this. So, married life is called grihastha ashrama. It is as good as sannyas ashram. Ashram means where there is Bhagavat bhajana. It doesn't matter whether one is a sannyasi or one is a grihastha or a brahmachari. The main principle is Bhagavat bhajana. So this is from a lecture on the 3rd verse of the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, delivered in Bombay on the 29th of March 1971. There are many more. I'll just read a few so that we understand how Prabhupada takes this word sannyasi. But grihastha means he is as good as a sannyasi. Grihe tishtati pi grihastha. He is suitable. He is not suitable to become a brahmachari because every facility is there, but regulated. And one who follows the regulative principles, he is ashrama. Either it is grihastha ashrama or sannyas ashrama, the same thing. Ashrama means very easily understood in India. There is discussion, the place where the spiritual culture is cultivated, that is called ashrama. This is from a lecture in on Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5 5.8. Vrindavan on the 30th of October 1976. Every one of us as good as sannyasi because we have sacrificed everything for Krishna. Sannyasi does not mean simply having no wife and children. He is a sannyasi. No. Nothing to possess except Krishna. That is a sannyasi. This is a darshana on the 28th of June 1971 in San Francisco. Then this is a letter which Srila Prabhupada wrote to Rupanuga Prabhu on the 30th of August 1968. Because you have sacrificed everything, your life, your home and your child, so you are a Tridandi sannyasi. He is writing to a Grihastha. In fact, you are a Tridandi sannyasi in fact. Because what does the Tridanda refer to? Tridanda refers to mind, body and words. So that is why you have Tridanda means three sections in the sannyas rod, which refers to the mind, body and words. So Prabhupada writes here, because you have sacrificed everything, your life, your home and your child, so you are a Tridandi sannyasi in fact. So continue this attitude seriously and sincerely. So you will be also as good as a sannyasi, even though you are in the dress of a grihastha. So there is a lot more he wrote in 1969. I just wanted to give you a small glimpse into how Prabhupada dealt with the idea of sannyas. So that letter was to Rupanuga Prabhu on the 30th of August in Montreal, 1968, from Montreal, 1968. So, as Jayapatak Maharaj in his Saturday classes repeatedly refers to Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja lecture in 1973 in London, where he said that he wants all of his grihasthas to be Paramahamsas. So, in the Vaishnava tradition, this feature is very common, that everything for Krishna and nothing for oneself. The very first verse of the first instruction for neophyte devotees, that is the first verse of the nectar of instruction. It is, please remember that this is, Srila Prabhupada refers to this as the first book of instruction for neophyte devotees. And the very first verse speaks about becoming a Goswami. And Prabhupada concludes that purport by saying that the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness are meant to become Goswamis, not Adanta Go, which means servant of the senses. So they are supposed to be engaged in the process of pure devotional service and not madly chewing the chewed. So that's how he concludes that purport. I've just given a paraphrase of that purport, ending of the purport. But Srila Prabhupada makes that point very clearly. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his commentary on that verse, clarifies very clearly that this instruction is, apart from sannyasis, it's specifically meant for the grihasthas also. So this state of being, that everything for Krishna, nothing for oneself, is something which is a specific characteristic of the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, we find Mahaprabhur Bhakta Ganer Vairagya Pradhan. Se deki priti hon Gaura Bhagavan. So what is the most prominent? Mahaprabhur Bhakta Ganer Vairagya Pradhan. What is the most prominent characteristic of the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? It is Vairagya. What does Vairagya mean? Vairagya means that we engage our body, mind, words and whatever we find in this world in the service of Krishna. Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya is Anasakta Vishayan. Anasakta Vishayan means without desirous of having it for one's own sense gratification. When one engages the material energy, Anasakta Vishayan. Anasakta Vishayan means without the desire to engage those objects in one's own service, one's own sense gratification. When one engages in the service of the Lord, Yatarham Upayunjate. So when one engages in the material objects in the service of the Lord, that consciousness is called Yukta Vairagya. And we are always taught this principle from the very beginning, that neither be too attached nor be too detached. Karma Yoga is practiced by those who are too attached, and Jnana Yoga is practiced by those who are too detached. But Bhakti Yoga is practiced by those who are neither too attached nor too detached. So, one is taught in the Krishna, in Krishna consciousness, that one has to give up the enjoying mentality and replace the enjoying mentality with the serving mentality. So why does one have the enjoying mentality? To derive happiness. Now it is explained that when one renders service to the Lord, the happiness that one experiences is millions and billions of times than what one can experience in sense gratification. In fact, Srila Prabhupada, throughout his teachings, he destroys the idea of modern civilization. And he destroys that idea because modern civilization is steeped in animal consciousness. The consciousness of how to get food, how to sleep very comfortably. These days there's a whole science to it of mattresses. It's become very popular. I mean, varieties of mattresses to sleep nicely. Then how to find nice sex life and how to defend against any attacks to oneself. So that could not necessarily mean only physical attacks, but it could also mean attacks on social media or wherever else, attacks by verbal attacks by friends or enemies or whatever. So Srila Prabhupada explains that this is the standard level of consciousness of the animals. So if you refine that consciousness, you still get an animal. You don't get a human being. If you refine that consciousness, you get a refined animal. But Krishna consciousness means you give up that kind of a consciousness of eating, sleeping, mating and defending. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada had no, you don't find Prabhupada ever giving an inch of credit for the advancement of modern civilization. He only says, oh, this is there, let's use it for Krishna. But per se, by itself, he does not give any credit. For example, when he saw the subways, Srila Prabhupada said, this is like the rats. The rats are also making the subway underground, So whatever he saw, he compared to an activity which the animals also perform. So no matter from what status of life one was in modern civilization, whether one was a scientist, whether one was a scholar, whether one was a businessman, Prabhupada simply dismissed all of them as polished animals. And this is to bring us in touch with reality. And this is the harsh reality. It is not said out of anger or in competition to material civilization. No, it is not said with a sense of competitiveness or anger. Rather, it is said with a sense of compassion that the human form of life precious human form of life is being wasted in such animal consciousness. Janiya Suniya Vishay Kainu. The deadly, Srila Prabhupada uses the expression, very interesting expression he uses. The people in this world are squirming in the deadly poison of sensualism, he says. So that is the animal consciousness. Now, one may think that there is so much, the whole concept of material attachment, material enjoyment is so much condemned. But as they say, practically, we find that there is some enjoyment. People like to eat nice food, people like to dress nicely, so many things that people do. Do we mean to say that they don't find any pleasure in this? If it's miserable, would they do it? I mean, why are they doing it? They are obviously driven by some form of pleasure. So how do we reconcile that with what the statements of the Bhagavatam, that especially Prahlad Maharaj saying that there is no happiness, it is just madly, as Prabhupada refers to it as madly chewing the chewed. Now when you take the concept of chewing the chewed, it's like sugar cane. If all the juice has been drained out of it, and if you try to chew that remnant, there's no juice in that. So it is called chewing the chewed. So chewing the chewed technically means that there is no juice in that, right? If there is no juice, and that is what we say is material happiness, there's nothing called material happiness. That's what it said. It's only punacharvita charvananam. Then what is it that people are experiencing? Is it not happiness? What is it? How do we explain it? So, Srila Prabhupada, the scriptures, the acharyas, Srila Prabhupada, they explain it very nicely for us that every material pleasure has to be dependent on misery. Without misery, there is no pleasure. What does that mean? For example, we may have some favorite food of ours. But if we are feeling completely full, then even if we see our favorite food, we feel, no, I don't want to touch it. I'm feeling already nauseous because I'm completely full, So our ability to enjoy is dependent, enjoy materially, whatever that word enjoy, I'll come to that, is purely dependent on a sense of lack. If there is no deficiency, there is nothing to fill. And if there is nothing to fill, there is no happiness. Because is it the food which is producing happiness? No. If it were to be the food which is producing happiness, then irrespective whether you are hungry or not hungry, it should produce happiness. So it is not the object which is producing the happiness. It is when we have a sense of lack, some deficiency, hungry, you say. What does hungry mean? It's a sense of deficiency. We need to fulfill that deficiency. So when we fulfill that deficiency, then we call that fulfillment of deficiency as happiness. It is not that the object is producing any happiness. The object does not produce any happiness by itself. It is the deficiency which produces that sense of happiness. So those of you who know mathematics here, there is a concept called negative numbers. So negative number means something which is below 0. So when you have a negative number, let's say -2, if you go from -2 to 0, you have in one sense gone somewhere, okay, but actually you have reached 0. You actually reached 0. So this is the same thing that happens in material enjoyment. When there is a deficiency, let's say the deficiency is -2, and you eat food, then from -2 you become 0. So it is not the food which is giving you the happiness. It is the fulfillment of deficiency which is giving you happiness. Food itself cannot give you happiness. Therefore it is said, Puna charvita charvananam, that madly engaged in chewing the chewed. You are trying to chew the chewed. The happiness is not coming from the chewed object. The happiness, the so-called happiness, is coming from the fulfillment of the deficiency. So therefore, there is no happiness in this material world. It is an illusion of happiness. And this fulfillment of deficiency is also like a drop in the desert. So it is not that there is actual happiness which is a drop in the desert, but it is actually this fulfillment of deficiency which appears to be like happiness. It's an appearance of happiness. That is like a drop in the desert, which cannot satisfy us. So, this is the very idea of material life, that the happiness that we derive, is exclusively dependent on deficiency or distress. Without deficiency or distress, there is no sense of happiness. But spiritual life is very different. This microphone, when I used it in the service of Krishna, this is material energy. By itself, it cannot produce any pleasure. But when it is being used for glorification of the Lord, it produces pleasure. This is called the inconceivable energy of Krishna. So, Prabhupada explains, just like an expert electrician can use the same electrical energy for heating or cooling. So, this energy, when engaged in the service of the senses, cannot produce any pleasure. This is Puna charvita charvananam. But this energy, when engaged, this object, when engaged in the service of the Lord, can produce pleasure. And this is our concept of Krishna consciousness. That when we engage ourselves in the process of Krishna consciousness, there is a constant generation of ever increasing pleasure. And Prabhupada explained this is the test of devotional service, that there is a constant generation of ever expanding pleasure, and there is a disgust for the so-called material happiness. Because one can see that in comparison to this, the material happiness are insignificant. The very next verse that we're going to read, I won't get into an explanation on that. The verse says, the next verse, 23 says, engage constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sadhus do not suffer from material miseries, because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. And Prabhupada ends that purport by saying, since the devotees always engage in the topics of the Lord, they are forgetful of the miseries of material existence. They are forgetful, Prabhupada explains. So, this is the secret, that when one engages, when one absorbs oneself in the process of Krishna consciousness, then we become forgetful of the miseries of material existence. You know, and as I said, in the next verse, Prabhupada actually speaks about Maharaj Ambarish. Although this verse speaks about sannyasis, the next verse Prabhupada speaks about Maharaj Ambarish, which comes to which brings up the same point that I explained in the beginning, that Srila Prabhupada equates full absorption in Krishna consciousness with sannyas. So, what we are meant to do, whether one is a brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, is everything for Krishna, nothing for oneself. Manasa deho geho jo kichu more, arpilu tuapade nanda kishore. So a grihastha in Krishna consciousness is meant to engage everyone in the family in Krishna consciousness. This is the very purpose of grihastha life. But in the last several years, we have been noticing a particular trend, which is the opposite of the concept of pure devotional service. The concept of pure devotional service is, how shall I use my family life to give pleasure to Krishna? How shall I use my business? How shall I use my occupation? How shall I use my ability to give pleasure to Krishna? So when I said of late, something else is happening. It has become quite common to hear devotees talk in terms of how to use Krishna consciousness to improve your business. How to use Krishna consciousness to improve your occupation. How to use Krishna consciousness to improve your family life. How to use Krishna consciousness to improve the different facets of our life. This is the opposite of the concept of pure devotional service. This is the pravriti marga, how to use religion to advance one's own purposes of life. But the process of Krishna consciousness is how to use one's situation in life to please the Lord. So that is what the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness are meant to focus upon. That how shall I mold my family life in such a way that everyone in the family is happy and fulfilled in serving the Lord. How shall I serve my family so that they're all happy in Krishna consciousness? How shall I engage my occupation? How shall I engage my business? Or how shall I engage whatever I'm doing to give pleasure to the Lord and His devotees? This is the sannyas state of consciousness. Then the question can come up, so is it really necessary for a grihastha to ever become a sannyasi? In principle, it's not necessary. But in practice, one has to see one's adhikar. Let's take for example the Pandavas. The Pandavas went through such an elaborate, complicated set of difficulties, continual set of difficulties. And finally, they got the kingdom. But very soon after they became the kings, Krishna left the planet. And what did the Pandavas do? Instantly, they left the planet also. They just left the whole kingdom. That's it. In one stroke they did it. So this shows their advanced level of consciousness, where even though they were engaged in worldly duties as kings, but they were fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And because of their being fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness, the moment Krishna left the planet, instantly they gave up everything that they had. That which they had worked so hard for so many years, going through inconceivable difficulties, which we cannot even conceive of, the kind of difficulties that the Pandavas went through. Yet, despite all that they had gone through, they just gave up everything in an instant. Which means that throughout their life, they while going through all those difficulties, they were very conscious of the fact that we simply want to please Krishna. So if one is in such a state of consciousness like the Pandavas, then it doesn't matter whether one takes up sannyas or does not take up sannyas. But on the other hand, if one still has attachment to family and society and with the sense of enjoying a little bit, maybe 1% or maybe 10% or for oneself, then one may have to seriously consider that in the final stages of one's life, let me just practice actually giving up. So nothing is irrelevant that is given in the Bhagavatam. Everything depends on one's individual circumstances. So the process of Krishna consciousness is very customized. There are general principles and there are application of principles customized for each individual. So the whole gamut of instructions, the whole series of instructions that we find in Srila Prabhupada's teachings are all applicable. It is simply a matter of which instruction is applicable to one, and that one receives that knowledge and wisdom in the association of advanced devotees. So I would like to end on that note that today being Akshaya Tritiya, they say it is a good day for auspicious beginnings, and people are very fond of buying some jewelry, and because they want to buy some precious objects so that it will multiply. Actually, there is a site called Prabhupada Radio. There is 24 hours, some lecture or the other going on. There are two streams. One is generally Prabhupada's own lectures. One is readings from his books, by others. So this morning I was hearing that, and Prabhupada makes a very important point. I was just wondering, what will I speak on Akshaya Tritiya that is very specifically relevant for pure devotional service? And Prabhupada makes a very important point. Prabhupada says that when it comes to Krishna, every devotee can say, Krishna is mine. And he says, Krishna is mine. Because in the material world, the moment you say somebody is yours, it means they are nobody else's. But in Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada explains, you can say Krishna is mine. Everyone can say Krishna is mine. So Krishna, who is Rasaraj, the reservoir of all pleasures, who is filled with the six opulences, full of six opulences, if that person is ours, you don't need anything else. Just don't need anything else. So on this occasion of Akshaya Tritiya, let us try to make that person ours. So that is the best thing that we can do on Akshaya Tritiya. Try to make Krishna ours. No need to try to make gold ours, some currency ours, or some property ours. We don't have to try any of these things. We just have to try to make Krishna ours on the Akshaya Tritiya. Of course, Srila Prabhupada explains for us every day is a new year. So there's no specific new year for us. So similarly for us, every day is Akshaya Tritiya. Every day we want to make Krishna ours. So on that note, I'll stop. So if there are any comments or questions. Okay. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your wonderful class. I just wanted to ask you, sometimes in our service, we like it so much, but we're not sure, we're in the enjoying mood. We get in the enjoying mood about our service. So how to avoid that danger of getting in the enjoying mood about our service?
We are not jnanis, and we are not analysts, and we are not we don't get into paralysis by analysis. So we are engaged in serving the Lord, and if that activity, which naturally will bring pleasure, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in fact says that even obstacles in devotional service are a source of pleasure. So it is the very nature of spiritual life, the very nature of existence in Krishna consciousness, that the activity will bring pleasure. The real thing is not whether the activity is bringing pleasure and we are getting attached to it. The real thing is that whether we are doing whatever is needed for our improvement in Krishna consciousness and for the general welfare of the people. So if that is secured, then in fact Prabhupada says that Krishna consciousness is the great transcendental adventure, and it is a pleasure which Krishna, I mean, we are not the jnanis or this is not material pleasure which one is trying to reject. It is an intrinsic, that which cannot be separated from pure devotional service. It's one of the characteristics of pure devotional service, that it is all auspicious and it produces pleasure very naturally. So in fact that is the nature of spiritual existence. That this is our natural state, the constitutional state of being, that we are always happy. Na sochati, na kankshati. We are always happy. Krishna consciousness means one is always happy. So that is a symptom of being Krishna conscious. Moroseness means that one is materially absorbed. In fact, in Krishna consciousness also we could have sometimes anxiety. Lord Chaitanya, our Supreme Law, the Supreme Lord whom we worship, he also has anxiety. What is the anxiety that he has? How shall all the fallen souls be delivered? But that anxiety does not produce moroseness. It produces a certain kind of ecstasy. So in Krishna consciousness there is only ecstasy and ecstasy and ecstasy and various kinds of it, and it keeps increasing in its grade, in its level. So the experience of pleasure is not something that we have to feel guilty about, but it's a very inseparable part of pure devotional service.
Hare Krishna Guru, Dandavat Pranam. So today is the very auspicious day, as we know, Akshaya Tritiya. So what things we can do on this sacred day for our improvement in devotional life?
So in Krishna consciousness, the formula is the same. As Prabhupada would say, old wine in new bottle, miracle done, your divine grace. So Prabhupada wrote that in a prayer to his spiritual master. So our process is that we chant the holy names, we serve the Vaishnavas, and we give out Krishna consciousness to others. Nama Ruchi, Jivadoya, Vaishnava Deseva, Sarva Dharma Sar. So these three activities is something that we are meant to perform regularly, daily. And of course, Rupa Goswami says among the top 5 elements of devotional service, which includes worshipping the deities, and also apart from the other 3, it also includes worshipping the deities and also hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. So one just has to focus on these top 5 elements of devotional service. And of course, Mathuravas also Rupa Goswami mentions. So you're already in Mayapur. Mathuravas also means, Prabhupada explains, that one should live, he said all his temples are embassies of Vrindavan and Mayapur. So one should, where 24 hours devotional service is practiced. So what I normally do is that, like Ekadashi, and these are days when the same activity that you perform can have a greater effect. So on Ekadashis, we try to chant more, we try to do other devotional activities more. So on any special day, the simple formula, the simple word is M-O-R-E, more. That's it. Yes, Ravi.
Thank you very much for the class. What is the history of this day that makes it so special? Would you know the...
Oh, there are some things like, this was the day that Ganges was brought to the earth.
Oh.
And it also says that if you, Akshaya means unlimited. So if you buy some gold, so then you keep on, becoming more and more wealthy. So people buy a lot of gold today, like that. So it's just...
What is the reasons particular for this day now to be so auspicious?
I don't know the history of the day though.
Okay.
The Shastric history, why it is called Akshaya Tritiya. What happened, that I don't know.
Okay, sorry.
But for Vaishnavas, the fact that Ganges appeared today is significant.
Yeah, that's enough, Hare Krishna.
Yes, Maji. Maybe somebody else knows.
So on Akshaya Tritiya, moon and the sun is exalted. Sun is in the Aries and moon it is in Taurus. It is only one day in the year and they are giving blessings because of that. This means influence of sun and moon.
Simultaneously, okay, thank you.
Sun and moon, this is astrological, yeah.
Okay, so thank you all very much. So Darshanati is going to begin now. Srimad Bhagavatam.